So about a week ago, the final chapter of Chainsaw Man dropped. And people are mad about it for a lot of different reasons. First, it seems like it's rushed. Second, it kind of came out of nowhere. But really, I think more than anything else, people are kind of seeing this final chapter as an unearned happy ending. And so let me tell you what this video is not going to be. This video is not going to be me arguing that the ending is some sort of masterpiece. It's not going to be me arguing that, oh, you're stupid and you're missing the point of the ending and it's actually brilliant. Rather, this video is just going to be me arguing that this is not a happy ending to Chainsaw Man, but this is one of the most depressing endings that you possibly could have imagined. Chainsaw Man at its core, I think, is a manga about dreams. It's about hopes and it's about chasing your goals. I did a video on this concept a few months back, and basically if you only look at chapter 1, there's so much talk about dreaming and there's so much talk about Denji's goals. At the very start of the series, Denji is just living in a shack with his dog Puchita, who of course is the Chainsaw Devil, so it seems. There's a lot of questioning whether or not that's Puchita's true identity, but we're not gonna get into that in this video. But in this very first chapter, Denji is just living alone with his dog Puchita in a shack. They're eating moldy bread. They have no money. Denji has to pay off his dad's debts. And so Denji just wants some of the most basic things in life. He tells Puchita, if dreams do come true, I want to hug a girl before I die. He wants to eat jam on bread. He wants to flirt and stuff with a girl. He wants to play video games in our room. But even though he has all of these dreams, even though he has all of these ambitions, he still has this overwhelming debt and this stress placed on his head. And then of course all the stuff with the zombie devil happens. Denji gets killed. Puchita revives him. And whenever Puchita revives Denji, he says, I've always loved listening to you talk about your dreams. This is a contract. I'll give you my heart. In exchange, show me your dreams. And so really the entire series is just about Denji chasing after his dreams and more or less Denji chasing happiness. Because what he finds is that every time he achieves one of his goals, every time he seems to capture one of his dreams, he is not happy. At the end of the first chapter, Denji hugs a girl, but it's not enough. And so then he wants to kiss a girl, and that's not enough. And then he wants to feel some boobs, and then that's not enough. And Denji starts eating good foods, and that's not enough. And Denji gets a family by the end of part 1, and Denji gets to go to school, and it's still not enough. And then of course he has this desire to be Chainsaw Man, and he has this desire to be loved by the people, but it's still not enough. And so the entire series, Denji is basically chasing after his dreams, and he's getting them. He's getting what he wants, and it's still not making him happy. In spite of the fact that he keeps on achieving all of his goals, one right after the other, it's not fulfilling him. And I think this is one of the reasons why people have come to love this series so much, because it's something they can relate to, it's something I can relate to. I've always been a super ambitious person, and whenever I achieve my goals, it's never enough for me. What I've realized with myself is that even though I do the things that I think will make me happy, I'm still not happy in the end. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have come to love Chainsaw Man, is just because, like me, they can relate to Denji. Like me, they can relate to his struggles. And I think this is a very serious issue that a lot of people have, just the inability to feel happy whenever you've done everything that you think will make you happy. And of course, between the beginning of the series and the end, there are a lot of battles, there's a lot of crap happening. By the end of the series, the world is more or less in an irreparable state. The world doesn't have death any longer, and so as a result, bugs and bats and pests are breeding and they aren't dying, and so they're kind of taking over the world. And by this point, almost anyone that Denji has loved is dead. And as I mentioned, Denji has had the chance to do a lot of the things that he wanted to do. He had a chance to go to school. He had a chance to hug and kiss a girl. Even though Nayuta died, I think is how you say her name, even though she died like halfway through part 2, he still had a chance to have a family. And he's had the chance to be Chainsaw Man, and he's had the chance to engage in a bunch of crazy battles and do a bunch of fights. But basically by the end of this, at the end of chapter 230, Denji gets one shot by some kind of crazy devil. It's not entirely clear what exactly this devil is, but regardless, it eats him. And so in the second to last chapter, chapter 231, called Goodbye Puchita, Denji and Puchita have one final heart-to-heart. And again, going back to chapter 1, Puchita made a contract with Denji that Denji had to show Puchita his dreams. Denji had to show Puchita what he was chasing and what he wanted so badly. And this is finally sort of where you get to hear Puchita's response to how Denji has done fulfilling his contract. Puchita tells Denji, looks like we got eaten by a devil. Our dream life together is over, but maybe that's a good thing. And Denji at this point still has not had sex with a girl, which is what he's been chasing for so long. And so he says, I was so close to getting to have sex. And kisses. I could have had unlimited kisses. And Puchita tells Denji, it's good that you didn't get to do that. When you found a precious family, When you got to go to the school you wanted to attend, and when you connected with Asa, some part of you was still unhappy, right? Unfortunately, you must have noticed too. You were far happier starving and suffering, fighting devils, and eating spoiled bread in that rundown shack. And so in essence, Puchita here is saying, even though you were trying to be happy, even though you were doing everything that you thought would make you happy, you still weren't happy. Turns out you had the crappiest but best kind of brain, one that can only find heaven when you're in hell. And so after this, Puchita, being the chainsaw devil, so we think, eats himself. And what Puchita eating himself does is it creates a world in which Chainsaw Man doesn't exist, a world in which he never existed. And Puchita tells Denji, in a world without me, maybe you could keep dreaming. Since meeting you, I've seen all the dreams I want to see. Keep on dreaming, Denji. And that's the last we see of Puchita, and then that causes an entire world reset that restores Denji back to the shack at the very beginning of chapter 1, only this is a world in which Chainsaw Man and seemingly Puchita never existed. And from there, the final chapter of Chainsaw Man, chapter 232, plays out. It plays a lot like a repeat of the first chapter, only with some major changes. Denji still gets killed by the Yakuza and by the zombie devil, only instead of being revived by Puchita, he's revived by Power, who's the blood devil, or the blood fiend, rather. And then from there, the two of them, instead of meeting Makima, meet Nayuda. And Power and Denji, as they were in part 1 of the manga, they become devil hunters. And one thing that people aren't picking up on, they're just seeing this as a happy ending, but the thing is that Denji is not happy despite all of this. Despite not having Puchita, and despite Puchita thinking that Denji would be happier without him, Denji's still not happy. He just kind of goes back to where he was before. He sees Nayuda playing video games, and Denji goes, video games, lucky. And then immediately after that, Power is mad at Meowie, her cat, for making friends with other people than herself. And Denji goes, must be nice to have a happy-go-lucky brain like yours. They go to fight a devil at Asa's school, and Denji goes, wish I could have gone to school. Denji runs into Asa, but the two of them don't recognize each other at this point in time because the previous world never existed. And this is where she says, thank you, Chainsaw Man, which of course has turned into a meme at this point. Chainsaw Man, because you were fighting with a chainsaw, oh yeah. It's kind of stupid, if I'm being completely honest. It's kind of funny, but it's not great writing. And then the final page of the entire series shows Power and Denji leaving the school. Power goes, let's get food. Denji goes, I'm broke. And so in essence, Denji is not happy in this new world. Denji is not happy in the world with Puchita, wherein he's Chainsaw Man, and then he's not happy in a world without Puchita, where he's not Chainsaw Man. And this is exactly why I see the ending as being depressing and not happy. Because once again, people are seeing this as a happy ending. People are seeing chapter 232 as just something that was pulled out of thin air. I've heard where some people have called it safe, and they've said that it's an ending that was designed purely to make fans happy. But again, whenever I read it, my first thought was not, oh wow, this is a happy ending. Rather, my first thought was, this is a sad and unhappy ending disguised as a happy ending. Because ultimately, whenever you reflect on Denji's dreams, he's not happy no matter what. He's not happy when he achieves his dreams. He's not happy when he doesn't achieve his dreams. He's not happy whenever he goes to school and whenever he has a family. He's not happy whenever he's Chainsaw Man. He's not happy when he's not Chainsaw Man. He's not happy when he doesn't get to go to school and have a family. And to me, this is the most frustrating and upsetting thing about the entire series. Because a world reset is one thing, and I don't particularly love it, but really this is a sad ending because it's about someone who never learns to be happy. It's about someone who, no matter what, cannot seem to achieve that. In chapter 231, Puchita tells Denji, you can only find heaven when you're in hell. But even when he's in hell, he doesn't seem to be able to find heaven. It's one of those things where no matter where he is in life, no matter how many family and friends he has, no matter if he has a job or if he's alone, if he's homeless, no matter what, Denji is not happy. And as I mentioned, for me, someone who feels very similarly and someone who kind of connected with Denji on that basis, for me, it's just a really depressing and upsetting ending. A fear I have is that I'll never be happy. A fear I have is that I'll never be satisfied. And it's really difficult to not read into this ending and to wonder about how Fujimoto himself feels. Because if I was a betting man, I would wager that Fujimoto himself feels that. I would wager that he probably struggles with feeling unsatisfied and feeling not happy when he knows he should be. And maybe that's me projecting, but at its core, the way I see Chainsaw Man now is it's a story about a guy who tries to learn to be happy, but ultimately fails. It's a story about a guy who cannot be happy no matter what he's given, no matter what he experiences, no matter what he has or what he goes through. He's just someone who doesn't ever really seem to be satisfied. And that's kind of what makes me sad about it. So as I said, this video is not me trying to convince you that the Chainsaw Man ending is some sort of incredible masterpiece. I have issues with it, and there are things that I wish turned out differently. There were some missed opportunities in part 2 for sure. There were things that were not followed up on. And I say this as someone who actually really liked part 2 for the most part. I really loved a lot of the directions that they were taking the series in, but it's really hard to read this and to not feel like Tatsuki Fujimoto was just tired. He was just exhausted. And I never expected like an obvious ending for Chainsaw Man, because that's not what he does. And that's one of the reasons I've always loved reading his work, is just because he takes it in such interesting directions. But I didn't anticipate this. I didn't see this coming. And so there is part of me that would love to see a part 3, but I also know that's not coming. Which makes me kind of sad. But again, people see this as a happy ending. People see this as something made to satisfy the fans and to make them think that his life is good and that everything's right in the world. But I don't think it is. And I think that the longer you think about it, the more unsatisfying the ending becomes. Because it's 232 pages about a guy wanting to be happy, and he never figures out how to be happy. And so I do love the series still, but it kind of hurts, I think, to read this final ending. And certainly it makes me question a lot about my own life. So thank you for watching. Have a nice night, and goodbye.